What is going on YouTube? RoboSushi here, bringing you guys a purple Three Musketeers deck profile. This was the undefeated deck profile I played at my last locals. I went 4-0 playing against the Musketeer mirror match and 2 bonds and 1 security control. I really like everything about this list. There's nothing I would really change, but I'll go over some of the things that some people may want to change and some cards that you may be able to add once the EX collection comes out. But without further ado, let's hop into the list. First off, we'll start with our level 2s, our eggs. We have 4 Demi-Meramon and 1 Sunamon. Some people would opt to just run the 4 Demi-Meramon for consistency, but to be perfectly honest, Sunamon also has a decent amount of consistency. There's good ways to play into it, so it's nice to have it, especially if the game goes long. I did play against security control, so sometimes the game did run a little long, and it was nice to have the extra egg for raising. And then Demi-Meramon, of course, just helps you cycle and fill the trash up more. For our level 3s, we have 4 Impmon. 4 Impmon's just, this is the BT6 Impmon. When you play it, you can trash a card from your hand to get a 3 Musketeers back from your trash. So this helps basically keep you at a 1-for-1 if you're playing, if you're going for a Beelstar and you don't want to lose that number of your 7s or 3 Musketeers in trash. You can play this Impmon and then either throw in maybe like one of your other 3 Musketeers that's not Beelstar or a 7 cost option to help keep the cycle going on. And then it basically gives you an extra 4 plays of your Beelstar. So next up, we have 4 copies of BT2 Impmon. This is just for early game cycle. This helps to fill your trash. On deletion, you trash the top 3. It's indiscriminate trashing, which sometimes isn't the best, but it's just so good in this deck because there's ways to get your Beelstar Mon back out and other combo pieces back out. So it's good to just fill up that trash with your effects so you can make your Beelstar Mon cheaper in the future. Next up, we have 4 copies of Sound Birdmon. This is the one that pairs really well with the Sunamon because you're using one of your effects to trash a card from your hand to gain the memory. So you trash the option, gain the memory. Sunamon basically gets you a draw, so you stay hand neutral, even though I would say you still go pretty positive by getting your option cards in the trash. So Sound Birdmon's good. Again, none of these rookies are worried about surviving. They're literally just there to have their utility and do chip damage. You don't care if they go in, so be free to swing with them when you use them. And then 2 Gazimon. Gazimon is just really good in this meta. Now that memory boosts are out, now that all the regionals are done, memory boosts are everywhere, not to mention against the security control matchup, who've always had the reinforced memory boost. Gazimon is just too good. Some lists I've seen have only run 1. Some lists try to run more. 2 seems to be a good number. You can usually get it back out with 2. 3 seems a little bricky. And 1, sometimes you just don't find it when you need it. So that is it for our level 3s. We're running 14, so you can always rush a little bit more and make sure you see them. Next, we'll go into our level 5s, our level 4s. I'll start with the black ones first. First, we'll have Deputy Mon at a 4 of. On play, reveal 4. You get to add a 3 Musketeers and an option, 7 cost option from them. So one thing to note about this card is when you reveal that, even though the card says and or 1 option card, you do have to take both. I've seen people that, because of the way it's worded, try to only take 1 of them. So just know that whenever you're playing against people who are playing the deck, or know that for yourself, that if you do reveal a option and a 3 Musketeers, you can't opt to want to throw 1 of them. You have to take both of them. Now, if you reveal more, of course, you choose which one and the rest go to the trash because you only have the option of 1 of each. But just know that for future games. And then your turn, when this Digimon digivolves into, you can digivolve it into a 3 Musketeers, paying a memory cost of 6. This is solely for Gundramon in this list. That's the only one that we run that is going to go into that. You're really not going to do that with your Beelstars. And then we do have one more. We have a level 4 Black Magnorimon. You know, he's a blocker. He restands. He's an infinite blocker as long as they can't get over it. Really good for early game protection. Say something like one of the bond decks can't really get through your board and deal with the Mechanorimon because they don't have they can't find the bond or something to deal with it. This just is a constant block engine, so it really helps. You can bring it back out with things like Zwart, which I'll go over later in the list. So, and he's another black Digimon to evolve on top of if you want to have some cycle, which we do run a few level 4s or level 5s. Next, for our purple level 4s, I run 2 Ginkakumon Promote. Promote's just, he's there for the rush. You get him out with something like a Nailbone or a, if you have the memory, a Zwart to not pass turn. So you can swing in with the extra aggro. Again, you don't care if this dies because it'd be great if you have something like 2 Beelstar Mons, which I did have come up. swing in, die, I play the other Beelstar and Nailbone again, swing in with another promote. I run 2 so I can make sure I see it. You could definitely run 1, maybe change your numbers for your Mechanorimon or something like that, since you can't get Mechanorimon back out with Nailbone. But I do like seeing 2 because early game it's good to see it for early aggression if you can fill your trash, if you get lucky on your mills, and then late game it's nice to have 2 just in case you can double Nailbone and it doesn't die to the swing and you need that extra 1 swing to finish it off. That it's just good to have 2 so you can see it. Last one, level 4, Vilemon, just a generic blocker. You can evolve into it to cycle just like some of your other ones, like the Ginkakumon, or you can just, it's really just a target for Nailbone or Zwart or something like that, so that you can have a little bit of protection if you need it. And then you can also, gives you a target to go into our level 5s, which are, I'll go over here in just a second. You could definitely see taking 1 promote out and putting another one in just so you make sure you see your blocker, but I didn't have any problems seeing him with the amount of milling I was doing. Next up, we'll have our level 5s. We run 2 Rebellimon, so if you want to climb up normally, this is your only option. He's just really good in certain matchups. Of course, he's really good for the Jesmon matchup, where you Digivolve into him, you trash a card from your hand to give him blocker and retaliation. That just helps to slow down a Jesmon if they have it back in raising, or you think you're going to pass them the memory to where they can go into the Jesmon. They have to wait a turn. They have to risk raising the Jesmon and then evolving into it and not being able to swing that turn, and then have to worry about maybe getting dealt with by a removal spell. So it slows that down. Also, the blocker and retaliation linger. So if you want, you can always go into, which I'll go over here in a second, our Gundramons. So you evolve into Rebellimon if you have the memory, and then you evo into Gundramon. So now Bond can't worry about, can't just go in and swing and by just bottom decking the Rebellimon, because the retaliation is on the Gundramon now. So it's good way, it's a good utility to slow down some of those decks that are going to swing a whole bunch or check a whole bunch of security, and this helps slow them down some. Speaking of Gundramon, I'll just go ahead. We play 4 Gundramon. I always like seeing Gundramon, even if it's not in my hand, it's in my trash. That's another number for Beelstarmon. And then, of course, it is a blocker, like I said, so it pairs well with Rebellimon. It helps slow down a Bond deck because they can't just bounce it to the bottom of the deck. They have to go through it. Same thing with Jesmon. It is a blocker, so it may slow them down for a turn. But again, Rebellimon is another good pair with that. Most of the time, we're just going to go straight into this off of a Deputymon so that you can get his on Digivolve effect, reveal 5, play a 7-cost option from them, trash the rest. Usually that's what's going to happen. He does have a backup effect where if you don't use an option card this way, you can delete a Digimon with a play cost of 4 or less. That most of the time doesn't come up. We run so many option cards, we're usually going to trigger off one of them. So I like to see the 4 so I can make sure, like I said, even for numbers for the 3 Musketeers. And our last 3 Musketeers, we run 4 copies of Beelstarmon, the lady herself. This is the biggest boss monster of the deck. The explosive power that this deck has comes solely from this card, in my opinion. Just the ability to play this to then for free late in the game, because her play cost is, of course, reduced for every 3 Musketeers or 7-cost option you have in your trash. So I've had it happen several times where I was able to play 2 Beelstarmons in the same turn because she was free, maybe 1 or 2 memory or something like that. So Beelstarmon is just really helpful in that way. And then to be able to pair with something like Nailbone to go into your blocker plays or to go into your promote plays to swing in, it's just, she's the key component of the deck. And in my opinion, if you don't run 4, I know she's a little bit more expensive in the profile than some of them, but if you can get your hands on 4, definitely run 4. I would almost say the deck doesn't work without at least 3 at minimum. So next up, we'll run some of our techs for our level 7s. This is 2 copies of Millenniummon. When you Digivolve, you bounce one of the opponent's Digimon to the bottom of their deck. This is really good for certain matchups where it's hard to deal with. Black blockers is a thing, or Black Royal Knights. This helps deal with Craniumon, to get Craniumon off the field, because that just, if they block up, Craniumon can't be dealt with because all of our cards delete. This can help get rid of it. And then it also gets rid of stuff like Zwart Defeat that comes out of security that you may not want to die to because you don't want to waste a removal spell to lose one of your other Digimon. But this is a good way to have that, to deal with Zwart that way. And then also it's a sticky card. If it has sources and it dies, it comes right back from the trash. So this is a good way to just keep the cycle going so that you can make sure that Millenniummon stays and your opponent has to worry about dealing with another big body the following turn. And then our last level 7 is Omnimon Zwart. This is just really good, helps supply the trash by milling 3, and then it also lets you play 2 8-cost or less black or purple Digimon. This helps again if you need that block up with a Vilemon or a Meganorimon. He also doesn't stop on play effects, so you can use things like Deputymon to cycle the trash more, or things like this Impmon to find your Beostarmons back out of the trash. So just don't forget about that. Sometimes you just want to go to get those effects off if you can get it off early in the game. Help make a little bit of a board and also use some effects that you might need. Oh, and let's not forget his when attacking effect. You can add a level 6 from under his sources to delete a level 12 or play cost 12 or less Digimon. So this helps you get your Beostar back if you evolve it onto that. And if you do the Deputymon play, it also you can get the Cowboy or the Gundramon back so that you can go back into that for another turn. Now we'll get into our options. We have start off with 4 copies of Fly Bullet. This is just good generic removal. Most decks just run, they do run their level 7 top end, but this helps deal with it before that point. It also activates out of security, so it's a good way to deal with most Digimon. Then you also have 3 copies of Trump Sword. This helps deal with stuff like your Bond decks, which are going to restand unless they're running some spicy tech like ADP, a Delicate Plan. Then Trump Sword helps deal with that. They swing, check security, it comes out, Trump Sword. Boom, now they've burned 2 security and they've only gotten 1 check off, so helps there. And then our last purple options, we run 2 copies of Nailbone. Like I said, Nailbone is definitely one of the shining stars of this deck, but I wouldn't run more than 2. This helps you get a level 3 and a 4. You can make a pretty nice board by playing this, but you're probably going to recycle it off of something like your Beostarmon, so I wouldn't run more than 2. I tried running 3 at one point, it turned into a massive brick. I'd see it in my hand, wouldn't have a good way to get rid of it, and then I was lower on my removal spells. So I've readjusted the numbers, and 2 seems to be a good sweet spot. I'm almost always going to see it in my trash or in my hand, and either way, as long as I have a Beostar, which is what I'm going to play off of it most of the time, then I have effectiveness from it. And then it also does let you play a level 4 or lower out of security, so maybe that last little block that you need. We only run 2 Gwalt Schwarmers as our black option card. Again, this is a 3 Musketeers, so as long as we have Beostarmon on the field, it doesn't matter the color requirements. But Gwalt Schwarmer just wipes the field, deletes all play cost 7 or less Digimon. When you hit it from security, you have to add it to your hand, so don't forget that. It doesn't blow your board up that way, and it may give you extra fodder for like Soundbird if you don't have anything else. That did come up once or twice when I was playing. This is good. Just be sure that when you play this, that you don't need whatever else you have on your board. Maybe you've swung in with all your little dudes, and then you Gwalt Schwarmer off of your Beostar to wipe your field as well as your opponent's field. So 7 cost options always are good to fill the trash as well. And then last 2, we have 2 Happy Bullet Shower. This card is the one that I thought overperformed the most because against some decks, looking at you, security control, this is the way to deal with Zwart. If you don't see your Millenniumons, or maybe they all get milled in your milling process, and you don't have any in your hand, if you can have a Zwart as the only body on the field, you can go into something like your Gundramon or hard play your Beostarmon and then activate this card because it does delete all of your opponent's Digimon with the lowest DP. Well, let's say they only have hit 1 or 2 Zwart defeats out of security. They're the lowest DP at 13,000, so then you can just wipe the field with that. So it's a good way to help deal with Zwart that's not just Millenniumon. This card came in more clutch than I thought because a lot of the times if they only have 1 big dude, that's what you're dealing with. So awesome card. 7 cost option as always. And then Matashita, he's our 1 Tamer. This is really just another way to get a Beostarmon back out. You don't need to see this card. Most of the time we're not worried about having a bunch of memory. Sometimes to deal with our board, our opponent have to overcommit if they can't kill us. And even if, so we're not worried about the memory, but this is like, when you play it, you get an option or a Digimon purple from your trash. This, like I said, is really just to get your Beostarmons back out. You could maybe vouch to get something like an Impmon back out so you can cycle a little bit more if you're missing a rookie like early game. But most of the time this is just for another way to get Beostar, so you can basically have more ways to play her. And like I said, memory tamer, so if you have a full trash and you can play Beostar for 1, it's better than only being able to play 1 Beostar. You can play 2 or 3 if you have them in your hand. So but that is the deck profile, guys. This is one of the most fun decks for me to play. I was looking forward to this as the meta was coming up. And the nice part about it is nothing changed with the starter decks. The starter decks had no effect. You could maybe make the effort to run something like Grave Memory Boost, or I think it's Glaive Memory Boost is what it's translated to maybe get your Beostar Mons back. But Matt does that, Impmon does that. You're not really needing the memory most of the time. You're going to pass memory and you're going to keep the board clear. So I think just having, you don't really need the memory boosts to search, because they don't mill. Like, if you can you imagine getting something that you need, throwing it to the bottom of the deck? That's not what you want to see. So, and one other change that you could definitely make room for as the meta goes forward, I don't really know about removing Matt. You could definitely remove Matt, I could see that, but you could find out some numbers, maybe cut one of your rookies or something, but finding room for Analog Boy, or Analog Youth, I believe it is what it's called in the English translation. He's just a way to help gain a little bit more memory and cycle an egg if one of your Digimon dies. Pairs well with like a Gweltschwarmer, and also he helps you search for a Digimon, because you get to reveal, I think it's 3, you get to take a Digimon, the rest go to trash. So it helps fill up the trash either way, and he's a Tamer. Makes more utility later on when we get some better cards to play with it. But like I said, going forward, the deck stays relevant in my opinion. You just have to make a few changes to deal with the meta. BT7, it kind of drops off, but I think for right now, this is a really solid list for this meta. Like I said, the only changes with EX are Analog Boy, and we'll have to see. I'll try to keep this deck profile going on as we get BT7 and going forward in the future. So, well, thank you very much, guys. I'll try to get some gameplay vids of this. I wasn't able to get them last time. I didn't have my camera with me, but we'll see going forward if I can't get some gameplay, because this is one of my favorite decks to play. It's very explosive. It's super fun to play. So stay tuned around for more gameplay and deck profile, guys, and I'll catch you next time.